Okay, so here we are. We're in the manual on step 1, which is the chassis, and the first thing we're going to build up is step 1A.1, which is to assemble the tail boom clamp and pulleys. And for that we need bag 2, which you can see labelled here, and these are sort of subdivided into bags 2A, 2B, and then some hardware parts. And out of the carbon fibre parts bag you need this piece here. Okay, so without further ado, I'll open up these bags and we can start putting together the first parts of the build. Okay, so here we have our first build components, and what we have here are these small rods which have a knurled end on them, and then this is effectively the tail boom clamp that we've got here. These are two halves of the tail boom clamp, and what we need to do is we need to push the knurled end of these rods into one of these clamps. So I'll just do that. Okay, so here we have 3 of them inserted, and you can see here the 4th one I've not pushed all the way in, and you can see the knurled bit here which is going to go inside here, and this effectively stops these from coming out easily, so it will hold together nicely. Okay, so the next thing to do is to just gently push together these two halves. Now if you look at these, these are aligned correctly. If you turn them up the other way, you'll see that there's a hole in the bottom. So you want both holes one side and both flats the other, and then just gently push the whole thing together. Okay, so I've just aligned this as they show in the manual, so we've got those lugs on the left hand side here, and with them on the left, this is the front of the boom clamp and this is the rear. So this goes towards the front of the machine, this goes towards the rear of the machine. Okay, so that's that first build step complete, and the next thing is to put together the pulleys that go on the gyro plate. Okay, so here we have our gyro plate. These are the mounts for our pulleys. These are the pulleys themselves and the bearings that go inside them, and these are the 2 screws which mount these onto the gyro plate. Now these screws, when you open the hardware bag, these are the most abundant screw in there. There should be 40 of these, so whichever screw you find the most of, that's the one you should be using for this build step. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is to mount these pulleys onto the gyro plate, and they actually mount onto the milled side. So you can see here this side has been milled, and the pulleys actually mount this side with the screw heads the other side, you know, the nice carbon fibre finished side. So the screw heads will go this side and the pulleys will go here on this side. So the first thing to do is to mount these onto here with these 2 screws, and we use blue Loctite to Loctite those in place. Okay, and there we have those 2 installed. You can see how I've put those on there. This is the milled side here, and then the shiny side, the other side with the screw heads. Okay, so the next thing to do is to install the bearings into these, and then to mount these onto those. Okay, and there we have our bearings installed. Now what you'll notice when you install these is that they need to go right down inside this bearing holder, and there's a little flange at the back which stops the bearing pushing all the way through and out the other side. So you need to seat these right the way down until they hit that flange and are, you know, right down inside this sort of holder. Okay, and I've just pulled out the screws that we'll use to mount these, and there are actually 10 of these in the hardware bag, and these are the 2nd longest screw in the bag. So there is a screw that is slightly longer than these, of which there are 6, but these ones there are 10 in the bag, so that should help you identify those. And these basically just screw down through the bearing into here. Okay, and there we have the pulleys installed onto the gyro plate, and you can see the heads actually sit down inside the bearing holders. So we actually mount these with the flange side of the bearing. So the flange is this side, and the screw sits down inside the cup of the bearing holder. so it's fairly flush actually with the top of the cup. And then once we've done this, we can install this onto our tail boom clamp that we made earlier. Okay, so here we have the parts for our next build step. I'm going to use these silver self-tapping screws, of which there are only 2 in the hardware bag, to install this onto the 2 holes here. And the way we want to do this is, if we look at this, we can see the kind of raised step that I pointed out earlier on. And with that on its side like that, this is the front, with this on the left hand side, with the stepped piece on the left hand side, this is the front, which means that this effectively mounts on there like that. Okay, and there we see it installed. If I turn it over, that's our tail boom clamp and pulleys. Okay, so the next step is building the bottom tray of the machine, and for that we need the bottom plate, these 3 metal parts. There are actually 5 of these and we need 3 for this bottom tray, and then we need 6 screws to hold these in place, and these are the most common screw, again, of which there are 40. Now when you screw these on, these have to go onto a particular side of this plate, and when you look at the plate you'll see that it's got 4 PEM nuts already installed in it, and if I hold it like that you can see that there is a wide side to them and a flush side, and these need to be installed onto the flush side. So these will go on here on this side, and they're screwed through from the opposite side using these 6 which we lock tight in place. Okay, so here we have what is effectively our battery tray. We've got to install these 2 metal parts onto this, much the same as we did with the bottom tray, and to do this we use 2 different types of screw. We use the ones of which there are 40, and we use these ones which are the same length but have less of a head on them, and they go in this forward position here, so when you strap your battery on here the head of the screw isn't going to dig into it. So there are only 4 of these, and these go in this forward position here, as I say, so that the battery doesn't get screw heads digging into it. Okay, for our next build step we're mounting this CNC part onto the anti-rotation slider using these very small screws. There are 4 of these in the hardware packet, and they're about the same size as the ones of which there are 40, except they've got this much smaller head on them. As I say, there are just 4 of these in the packet, so it should be fairly easy to find them. Okay, and that's that part complete. Just a view of that.